Good morning and welcome to the Tribe Sober Facebook Live. Today's date is the 15th of January 2022. It is a brand new year, and together we're going to talk about something to kind of get us going for the new year this year. So, welcome if you are joining on. I see people starting to log in and log on. And if you're joining via YouTube and seeing this after we've already recorded, welcome, and I hope this is going to be of value to you. But yes, thank you for those people who are joining live. It always makes it a lot more fun when there are people who are joining and there are people adding comments and everything. And so I see Janet is already in. So thank you, Janet. Good morning, Mandy. Lovely to see you here. If you want to drop a hello, it's always nice just to know that I'm not on my own here, because Facebook Lives can feel like a bit of a lecture that you have to give. Not that I don't mind giving lectures. So good morning to every single one of you who's joining us, to my tribe, which I'm very grateful to be a part of, and anyone else who might be spotting this who wants to go on a journey towards changing their relationship with alcohol, because that's ultimately what the tribe is about. I don't see myself as an alcoholic. I see myself as a person who has an unhealthy relationship with alcohol, and I need a tribe to assist me, and I need moments like this to assist me in developing a healthy relationship with alcohol. And my healthy relationship with alcohol, unfortunately, is divorce. So for some of you, it might be that you're able to see each other every now and then, and it's fine. But for me, my healthy relationship with alcohol is a divorced relationship, and we no longer speak. So I hope that you, whatever journey you're on, you are able to enjoy this, go along with me, and let's enjoy the ride together. So yes, I'm going to start about talking about something called Dear Future Self, and it's something I discovered last year that has been really helpful in my life. I've got a pen in my hand, so I look very important and educated, but I don't know why I have a pen in my hand. So what Dear Future Self is really a concept that I came up with that Benjamin Hardy, he's a doctor, a PhD doctor, who speaks about this concept of Dear Future Self with Dan Sullivan. And in Tribe Sober, one of the things that's incredibly powerful and was incredibly powerful for me was writing my goodbye to alcohol letter. And I'm sure that for those of you who are on the tribe, or for those of you who follow these videos or follow the podcast, Janet does speak often about it's writing this letter when you're ready to say goodbye to alcohol. And if that's your decision, is to say goodbye to alcohol. I wrote my goodbye to alcohol letter when I shared at the Zoom cafe, which Tribe Sober holds on a Saturday. And it was an incredibly powerful moment for me, because it was a moment where I was able to kind of divorce. It felt like I was handing in the final divorce papers. You know how some people stay married and but they never sign the papers. We see it in movies and stuff like that. But it really felt like it was a public, and it's on the website for those of you who go to tribesober.com and look at the goodbye to, and there's lovely letters on there, not just mine. But it's really a beautiful moment to say that the relationship is one where the healthy view of you is one where I've chosen to disconnect. And that's okay. We're allowed to divorce. Divorce can be a good thing. So the goodbye alcohol letter got me thinking about, well, now that I've said goodbye to alcohol, what is the next step for me? Because I want my future to be one that's also alcohol free. But that takes work, because so many people that I've spoken to, that I know, that are close to me, have gone through what in addiction circles would be called relapses and things like that. So sorry, I'm just reading a comment. Divorce is best. I don't know if divorce is best always, but divorce with alcohol is best. Okay. So yes, morning, Roz. So I'm glad that you're here. I would be sad if you weren't on the call. So one of the things that we need to remember is that although we've said goodbye, how do we plan for our future? Because how do I make sure I have an alcohol-free future? Because that's what I've decided by saying goodbye to alcohol, is I want to have a relationship with alcohol that is healthy, which means that when I see alcohol bottles, they're not something that triggers me to want to go ahead and down them. That if I've had a bad day, that my immediate trigger isn't to necessarily open up that bottle of wine or pour a glass of vodka or whatever it is, which was past thinking for me. So how do I, and even if I am still in a drinking, the dear future self can be helpful, because what it does, and it's time, yes, that it's in the beginning of a new year, is how do I want my future self to look like? And what do I want to add into my life so that my future self agrees with my present self? Now, Viktor Frankl, who wrote an amazing book called Man's Search for Meaning, and if you haven't read it, it is definitely worth a read. And it's not a book about sobriety, but Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist who was a Jewish psychiatrist who was captured in the Holocaust. He had written a book which was confiscated by the Nazis, and he then wrote a book once he was released from the concentration camp about man's search for meaning. And forgive the use of gender and patriarchal gender, but I'm sure he would name it something different these days. But he developed a psychological therapy called Logotherapy, which was about our sense of meaning. And what he did was investigated, and he watched people in the concentration camps, and he watched people who survived versus people who didn't survive. And he realized that the people who survived the concentration camps, now there were obviously those who were murdered, and he looked at the people who were just, kind of imprisoned. But the people who were imprisoned, there were certain people who lost meaning, who lost a sense of future. And when they lost that sense of future, they atrophied. And what they started doing was becoming less than, until eventually they got ill and a lot of them died. But people who found meaning, and his meaning was to rewrite that book that he had lost, which ended up in being Man's Search for Meaning, which is still a bestseller today. His sense of meaning, whether it was watching people who were helping children, people who were determined to find their children when they got out of concentration camp, people who had an imagination to see what they could be beyond the concentration camp, they were able to survive in a different way from the people who had lost meaning and couldn't get out of the state of who was where they, who they were in their current position. And that got me thinking about my sobriety, because I don't want to lose meaning in my sobriety. I don't want to lose meaning in terms of Clive. So what I did at the beginning of this year was I wrote a Dear Future Self concept. I didn't write a letter, although it sounds like a letter. It's not the same as the Goodbye to Alcohol letter. But is that what I did was I planned for what I wanted to see Clive to look like at the end of 2022. And I wanted to look at 3 things that spoke very clearly to the Clive that I wanted to envision. Now, why is envisioning our future so important? Because so often we get stuck in the present. And the reality is that what creation of anything starts by a thought for the future. So what do I mean by that? Do you see this little parrotty thing, what's a cockatiel, behind me? All of these books that are behind me started with a thought. Someone thought that I'm going to design something, I'm going to create something that in the future someone might be able to have on their shelves. And that's so important, because when we get stuck in the present, we don't think of what could be. We don't think of the Clive, the Tribe Sober community, whoever's listening. We don't think of me in the future. We get caught up in our present. So we get caught up in the day-to-day living, and the day-to-day living can sometimes feel overwhelming. But when I have a thought of what I want Clive at the end of 2022 to look like, I have something to work towards that's different from just fighting with my present. I see so many people fighting with their day ones, fighting with their I'm on 14 days and I'm struggling. And I get that. I have no judgment towards that. Many people in the community know my journey. I think I had about 1,000 day ones. But it was because until I got to a point of saying, well, what do I want future self Clive to look like? And future self Clive was sober. That was one of the things I decided on, is that future Clive was sober. Present Clive was working out his relationship with alcohol at the time. But future Clive is sober Clive. Future Clive is Clive who adds to the community by doing these Facebook Lives. And that's why I jumped at the opportunity. This last week, I don't know what it has been, and I think it's summer, and I think it's been better. I've almost been triggered a bit to think, well, just, when you get that kind of momentary thought of like, it would be nice. And it's not that I'm craving a glass of wine, but, I've been sober for over a year now. But future self Clive is 2 years sober, which is in September. So future self Clive, I've written to future self Clive and I said, I look forward to meeting you who's 2 years sober. And what I've also done is that future self Clive gives Facebook Live talks. And I don't want to sit in one of these talks one day or have to cancel with Janet and say, the future self can't give these talks anymore because future Clive is no longer having a healthy relationship with alcohol. So I'm committed to giving these talks, and Janet has booked me for many sessions to come, so you'll see my face a few times. Because what I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm committed to these future self talks so that I'm sober Clive is speaking. So I want to talk, I hope this is making sense about future self and if it's resonating. But what I want to do is I want to talk more about what does future self mean in terms of our sobriety, but in terms of us as human beings. How do we develop a future self mindset? And the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to look at, and placing that thought, that creation, is what do I want me to look at the end of the year? That if I was sitting and writing an SMS on Slack to the Tribe Sober community, speaking to my family, but even bigger, speaking to my community of friends, what would I want them to be saying about me? And what would I want to be saying about myself? What's important for you to focus on right now? Sorry, I've written some notes, so I might look down every now and then. You'll see my bald head instead. But what are the 3 priorities that you want to look at that will determine future self you at the end of 2022? And I don't want you to go as small as sobriety. That's an important part of it. I want you to make it a bigger concept. Because one of the things that I've decided my 3, and I'll share my 3. My 3 are my health. The second one is my net worth. And so I'm unashamed about the fact that I am a person who wants to make money. This year I run my own business and I want to be a person who adds value to the world, but I also want to make money in doing so. And my third priority this year is my education. I want to keep evolving and learning. I'm a person who likes lifelong learning. So I want you to spend some time in your journal, to spend some time with yourself, looking at what are the 3 priorities that you want to do for this year. What does future Clive want? What does future, as I'm just seeing who's on the call, what does future Roz look like? What does future Janet look like? What does future Anik look like? And only for the end of the year. Mandy, thank you for being here. What do you look like at the end? See Flex here as well. Hey Fleck. What do you look like at the end of this year? In terms of 3 things. And I only want you to choose 3 things, or else we get consumed with too much. Choose 3 priorities. And then what I want you to do is to write down those 3 priorities. Now, I've written down health. Now, health is the food I put into my body, because when I wasn't sober, I wasn't healthy. I would drink a bottle of wine, sometimes 2 a night. I would go out with friends. I would be the life and soul of the party. But the next day I would feel terrible. So I'd order awful food for breakfast or have awful, we all have the fry up thinking that that's going to line our food with fat so that we feel better. Whereas actually I just needed to not do what I did the night before. And I felt shit the whole of Sunday. I don't want that, Clive. I want a healthy Clive. I don't want to necessarily, my goal is to run a marathon by September, but it doesn't have to be as big as that. It could be a Clive that goes for a walk once a week. But part of healthy Clive is that I watch 80% of what I put into my body must be healthy. 20% can be junk food. I'm almost 50. I'm not worried about looking like a supermodel anymore. But I just want to feel healthy. I want to not have to buy clothes to fit my waist. I want to rather have my waist fit the clothes that I have. And being sober is part of that health journey for me, because being sober wasn't helpful for my health. So that's what I'm going to focus on. And I'm just giving you mine in the hope that it helps you in terms of moving forward. So that's what I want to focus on is my health. The second thing I want to work on is my net worth. I want to build a business of meaning. So I have a goal for my life. I've written a vision statement for my life. And my vision statement for my life is that I want to make people better. Now, that's my business plan. So that's why I agreed to do these talks, because hopefully 1 or 2 people walk away feeling a little bit better from having heard my journey. And I've got no control over that, but I just want to open myself up to the platforms. But I want to make people better. And my business is training people. So it makes sense that I want to make people better. I want to make people better in their business. I have a coaching business. I want people to feel better after they've worked with me, that they feel that they've got something to work on in their lives to move forward. But I also want people to feel better after just having an interaction with me. I want people to, and I don't always get it right, but even if I bump into the street, I want people to walk away and say, that was a great interaction. So that's my business plan, and that affects my net worth, is because I want Clive to be the go-to guy. I want Clive to be if you've got a bit of budget left over, phone Clive, because I'll spend a bit of money with Clive. I want to be that guy. I'm unashamed about it, okay? We have to earn a living. But I want to be the kind of Clive that does that. And I remember hungover Clive wasn't that guy. Hungover Clive avoided calls in the morning. Hungover Clive avoided getting into business meeting. On a Monday, I would never book a business meeting until lunchtime, or if I would say I wouldn't take meetings on a Monday, mostly because I felt so shocking from the weekend before. Now I rather take Fridays off so that I can enjoy my weekend and go and have a bit of a long weekend because I work for myself and I'm able to do that. And I rather fill my Monday with the awful work to do and get that done, because I'm not avoiding it anymore. Because my net worth was affected by my sobriety, by my lack of sobriety. First of all, I was spending, I've looked on my app now, and I think I've saved like 26,000 Rand. I don't know where it's all gone to, but anyway, I've saved about 26,000 Rand for those of you who are counting in dollars. I've saved so much money by being able to not spend money on alcohol. I've been able to put it into resources. I booked a course that I'm doing for a year on transactional analysis and to add to my coaching business. That's money that probably I wouldn't have had if I was still drinking. But also I'm able to be present and focused. I work with clients now in India, and they're 7 o'clock calls. I would never have taken 7 o'clock calls in the morning beforehand. Also, some of the workshops that I have are evening workshops. I would never have done that because 4 o'clock I would be salivating for my glass of wine. My net worth is one of my priorities, and within that, sobriety is a goal. Sobriety isn't my main goal. And I wrote actually as I was writing that is that sobriety is not my meaning. Sobriety is just part of a bigger picture, Clive, of making a bigger picture, Clive. And when we focus on the pebbles, we often get lost in the pebbles. Stephen Covey talks about focusing on the rocks. Fill your jar with the rocks. My rocks are health, my rocks are my net worth, and my rocks are my education. The pebbles are what I fill around that. I don't focus on the pebbles because I want to focus on future self Clive. One of the pebbles is sobriety. It was a big focus of mine. It's no longer as much of a focus, and I'm grateful that I've got to the opportunity. But I also want to focus on my education. My classes are on Saturdays. I would never normally have taken a class on a Saturday because that was rosé in the lunchtime. By 12 o'clock I'd be here. 10 o'clock I'd open up a glass of wine because and have dinner parties that evening. I would never have normally booked for a Saturday class, and also I would have been hungover from the Friday before. But I want to be invested in these classes, and I really want to take that seriously. So sobriety is a part of that. But I'm talking about it because that's our context. But can you see it in terms of your meaning and in terms of your life? Like, what is your meaning? And sometimes we get so caught up in the little things. We beat ourselves up about day one. Day one is just day one. I'm starting on day one. But what does future Clive look like? Okay, so I want to re-articulate future Clive. Future Clive looks like that. Future Clive has been however many months clean at the end of the year, whatever it is. But what I want to do is I want to make sobriety part of my bigger meaning. I don't want sobriety to be my focus. And I also want to invest in my bigger meaning. So I'm investing in marketing my business. I'm investing in writing a book. So what I've done is that I have goals associated with each of those. So my education, I've signed up for this course. I want to be ICF accredited, which is, for those of you who know coaching, I want to be an internationally accredited coach by the end of February. So I want to make sure that that's happening. Those are my goals. I can't do that unless I've got a clear mind. Business, I've got revenue goals. I'm not going to share that with you, but I have revenue goals. I want multiple income streams. I write for a Canadian company at the moment, which is amazing. I love that. I have clients in India that I coach. I have training companies of financial institutions that I work with. I'm doing such exciting things, and these are things that have all happened since I decided to work for myself and since I've been sober. I want to publish a book. I'm halfway written, and hopefully someday some of you will get to read it. And sobriety is a big part of that book. And I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I've got a schedule from 4 to 7 in the morning. I write that book. I've been a bit bad with it this year, but I will get back into the routine. I could never have done that if I wasn't sober, Clive. My future self, Clive, would never have been able to do that. Health, sobriety. I've started back at the gym at the beginning of this year because I'm not as scared of COVID as I was. My food, and I'm working on my mental health, and sobriety was a big thing in terms of my mental health. So all of those, sobriety affects my bigger picture goals, but also other things do affect all of those bigger picture goals. Working on my mental health, making sure that I take antidepressants because I do have familial depression. I want to make sure that I'm working on staying as positive and as focused as I can on being future self Clive, and anything that stops me from that, I'm going to invest in making future self Clive a reality. One of the things, and I don't work for Tribe Sober, I'm a big advocate of Tribe Sober. And one of the things that I did was I joined Dry January. Now, I could be smug and say that I don't need it anymore. I've been clean for, I hate the word clean, it sounds a bit, but I've been alcohol free for almost 16 months. So I could smugly say, oh, I'm beyond that, it's all fine. But I know that where I spend my money is where my heart is. So I'm spending my money on education because that's where my heart is. I've got a gym contract because my health is where my heart is. I want to market my business, so I'm spending money on that. I did Dry January because I wanted to part with a little bit of money to be able to say I'm investing in my future self, because I don't want to ever be smug about my future self. I want to make sure that I'm saying yes to the opportunities. And I see, Janet, you want to book me for 5 years. I love that, because it means future Clive in 5 years' time has to be able to say, oh, I want to tell you a story about my relapse. That's not what future Clive's looks like. Future Clive looks like the glowing Clive that isn't hungover from the night before. So that's what I want to do. So I'm staying a part of the community. I think my membership is up in March, but I want to stay a part of the community because the community is an investment, and I might not always post on it, but I love seeing the articles that are shared, someone sharing their milestones. But I also want to be reminded when someone says that, I'm back today when I'm struggling. I want to be reminded of my struggles, but I want to be able to help where I can, whether that be a message that I send back or that I'm just sending good energy to them, and just feeling empathy for them. But I want to be a part of a community that I'm investing in that's going to make future self a reality. And also I want to be a part of a community. And that's not just Tribe Sober, but I'm going to get rid of people in my life that don't make future self a reality. My old drinking buddies, they've gone. Because they didn't add to future self. For those who are able to see future self and have their glasses of wine and enjoy me. I know one person said to me, I never invited you because you don't drink. And I was like, I'm glad you didn't invite me then. But some people, they've invited me and they've been surprised that I wasn't drunk because I was still the life and soul of the party. Because future Clive, I want to add people into my life that respect future Clive. Future Clive is one who's health focused, and part of that is sober. Future Clive is business focused because I've started my own business. Future Clive is education focused. I want to be educating people. It's part of my business, and I want to be learning as much as I can. So what I want to do is I want to define my sense of purpose. My purpose is that I want to make people better. What is your one-line intention for 2022? What do you want to do to add value to the world or in your life? Second thing is define your 3 points of clarity. What are your future self points of clarity that you want? And then set goals within those core priorities. Fill the pebbles around the 3 rocks, okay, so that nothing else can get in the way with those. Fill your schedule with things like my 4 to 7. That's focusing on future Clive. A book isn't in my present, it's in my future. So in my present, I'm adding in things that are gonna speak to future Clive. So that's the 4th thing, is I want to schedule around future Clive self. I want to schedule that I'm available for these Facebook Lives, that I'm on the Zoom calls, schedule time for the podcasts, whatever it may be, for business podcasts, schedule education into my life, because I want dear future Clive to be a powerful, helpful part of the world where people say, I'm glad he is part of the world. Because there was a time in my life when I was drinking where I didn't want to live anymore. I want Clive to be someone who says, I'm grateful to be alive because I'm adding value and I'm seeing what I want in my life. I'm creating with my thoughts what I want in my life, and I want other people to be grateful to be around me. That's what I have to say about Dear Future Self. It's been a very powerful concept in my life, and I think it works so beautifully hand in hand with saying goodbye to alcohol, and then also saying, what do I want for my future self? And I know Janice, I watched a Facebook Live, spoke about goals, and I'm speaking similar language as what Janice so brilliantly spoke about. So I'm hoping that this is helpful and just adding to what the community has, and for those of you who get to watch this on YouTube. I know I've had some friends say they've found it and spoken to me about my sobriety, and that's been amazing. And for other people who are just watching this, I hope that it's been helpful for you as you journey towards saying, well, what do I want me to look like at the end of this year? You can go up to 3 years, 5 years. I don't find that helpful. I just know that when I finish off this year, I know what I want Clive to look like. And I know life's going to throw shit my way. I know things are going to happen. I might have someone close to me. Something bad happens this year. I've got to feel that, and I've got to make sure that I stick to what future Clive looks like, even though stuff gets thrown at me along the way, because that's my meaning. That's my purpose. That's my overarching script, is that I want to make people better, even when people in my life sometimes don't make me feel good or don't make me feel better. I'm going to check if there are any questions. If you want to post any questions, let me know how this has been. So I'm seeing that I want to help more people via Tribe Sober. Fantastic, Janet, and you do such a fantastic job. So I'm going to start at the top of the comments and work my way from there. As you're talking, my 3 priorities are clear. Thank you, Anik. I'm so glad that they are, and I think it's worth taking the time to work on your 3 priorities. It really does. I'm so glad that it resonates with you, Roz. And so I see that Janet has posted, if you want to, if you are watching this on Facebook, there is the link where you can join the Dry January, because I think that's fantastic. Glad you've got your priorities. Okay, I'm seeing people saying that they've got their priorities, and I'm glad that that's resonating with you. That's what I have to say today. If you want to talk to me on the Slack channel, for those of you who are part of the Tribe Sober community, you absolutely can. I've enjoyed this time. I hope that it's resonated with you. And I hope that working on your future self adds to the goals where you want to be. And I wish you all the best in your journey towards developing a healthy relationship with alcohol, one where you feel strong in your resolution to divorce or to just see each other every now and then, whatever your journey might be. I recommend divorce. But I hope that future self sees divorce in the future. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the opportunity. Blessings to you all. And yeah, you've got a community who just love you and want to support you. That's me signing out. Where do I do that?